With Ike and Spike and Fritz back here in the studio. Ike, how you feeling, brother?
Brother Spike, well, it's Friday Eve, so I feel pretty good. Feel pretty good. Eagles still haven't done anything, but that's okay. That's okay. In how we trust. Jackie Baseball, keep it together in there. Team starts in a couple weeks. Just make sure they get off to a good start.
Nope.
Holla at your boy.
Nope. Nice little slow and steady wins the race. It's a marathon, not a sprint. 2 weeks from opening day. Trey homered and walked earlier today. Everything's fine here in the Delaware.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We have a big show today. I was talking to a friend of mine in Austin yesterday, and he was like, "What do you guys must be talking about the Phillies and the Sixers?" And I was like, "No, bro. Huh? You don't understand Philadelphia." I said they could get. Well, I love the other teams. They could get rid of the other teams, and we would have no problem here at WIP the way that the Eagles are.
Content.
Always busy with the Eagles. So we got a big show coming up at 3. We will have Elliot on so we can talk about the 2 new Eagles additions that weren't on the team last year that they've signed in the last 24 hours. We will have Flyers in 50 today. We will have former Eagles cap expert Jake Rosenberg. I've mentioned a few times over the last couple of weeks that I'm driven nuts by the fact that I cannot understand how the salary cap works in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So Jake will join us at 4 to try to explain in layman's terms how this works, how the Eagles do it, and then maybe the situation that they're in. And of course, we have the top 5 and the text line. But we start with the Birds. And I understand everyone's desire to believe in this plan of longevity. This plan that we have all convinced ourselves that is the plan that the Eagles are going forward on, given that they've lost so many players on defense. May lose a couple of stars on offense as well, by the way, Dallas Goedert, Mekhi Becton. And the plan is to draft and develop these players. And we're so good now at drafting and developing players that we simply don't need to make big splashes anymore because we can just draft players and develop them and let them go and then find new ones. And I have to tell you that if you want the Eagles to win the Super Bowl next year, if the plan is we won a Super Bowl this year, so we win a Super Bowl next year, this plan of drafting and developing, it doesn't fly to me. It will have to be something where we package a bunch of picks and get a big player or something like that, because even when this drafting and developing works, it takes a few years, right? Mm-hmm. It took Nolan Smith 2 years to become what he is, and we're still not even sure that he is that for an entire season. Milton Williams took a few years. Josh Sweat took a few years. We're still waiting on Kelly Ringo to develop. Jordan Mailata took a few years. This is all a great plan for the future, but right now, as far as I can see, we will be missing a guard and be missing a tight end and be missing an edge and a tackle and a cornerback and a safety. And even if they draft well, this doesn't work for next year. So I guess my thing is I'm fine with the concept of drafting and developing, but not if we want to win a Super Bowl next year. If we want to win a Super Bowl next year, we're going to have to take these picks and trade them for a Trey Hendrickson or trade them for the 5th pick in the draft or something like that, because drafting and developing with 3rd-round picks does not make the Eagles a Super Bowl contender like the way that we want them to be next year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, in a vacuum, you're absolutely right. I think it's bigger than that. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we should just bank on drafting players and hope they develop into star players and we go from there. But I do believe that is a healthier way to have sustained success. I truly do believe that, because managing the salary cap is a balancing act every year for every GM. And sometimes, like the Eagles' issue with the salary cap isn't, well, we paid the wrong players and now we can't improve the team and we got to let go of good players, so we got to take a step back for 2 or 3 years and let's hope to regroup. Nah, if that were the case, I'd be worried and concerned. The Eagles' draft and development plan sort of centers around we have to replenish talent because we've lost guys because they were good players and we couldn't afford to keep everybody, because we have other players on the team that are already sort of established good players. And so you're going to have to eventually pick and choose who you're keeping versus who you're letting go. I think every team has to deal with that. So the best way to replenish that talent that you're allowing to walk away, because you've done a great job of developing guys and they're signing bigger deals elsewhere, Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, you have to draft well. The good thing for us is that the Eagles have figured out their formula for drafting well, for developing players. They have the right coaches in place that understand about teaching guys and guys getting incrementally better each year. Each year. Now, every player you draft isn't going to turn out to be a starter or a star player in his first year. Just doesn't happen. My good friend Jeremiah, he wasn't even active, I believe, the first 10 weeks of the season our rookie year.
And were they going to cut him? Didn't Andy tell him he was going to cut him at some point?
No, this is under Ray Rhodes.
Oh, under Ray, yes, under Ray Rhodes. Yep.
So his future was sort of in doubt in his mind because they felt like they had wasted a pick on a third-round pick. Lo and behold, he comes out, he's a starter, wins the starting job the next year, almost has 200 tackles in his rookie year, never looked back. Didn't play a whole lot in his first year. Was much better in his second year. I'm not saying everybody's going to turn into that player. What I am saying is if you draft well, meaning that you have the eye for the talent, now it's up to you to get them on the field sooner rather than later. Believe me, they don't want players to wait 3 or 4 years to develop. They'd rather you develop at least by your second year. Because they rarely come in relying on rookies to have to play. Now, Quinyon and Cooper, they are exceptions to the rule. Lito and Sheldon Brown didn't even play their rookie years because Troy and Bobby was here. Matter of fact, I don't think they played for 2 years, right? Because we drafted them in 2001. Bobby and Troy were still here in 2003.
Yes.
So Lito and Sheldon didn't even start for 3 years.
Well, and there's my concern,
and those are
right?
Pro Bowl caliber players.
And there's my concern, right? Because next year, I see an opening on edge, I see an opening on tackle, I see an opening on cornerback.
That are going to have to be filled.
Filled next year.
Next year, right?
And I don't know that I don't think that those guys that we have waiting around are ready for that. Right. I'm not confident enough to win a Super Bowl next year. And I agree with you. Fair. Drafting has to be part of it.
Yeah.
It does. But the draft hit rate they've had over the last few years, even if you're good at it, is not a sustainable thing. No one's that good at the draft
every year. Yes,
right.
I agree.
And even some of our development success stories, like Steen, he's fine, but he's not a starter, right? They don't think he's a starter.
Right.
Keely Ringo, they've been waiting for him to develop but we don't know if he's a starter.
We don't know,
Sidney Brown, okay.
Yeah, I might like him, but we still don't know yet.
We still don't know.
Yeah.
And for a team that wants to win the Super Bowl next year, which I want them to do, again, I'm not saying trade everything and blah, 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 but to me, it's about part of getting draft picks is about drafting the players, but part of getting draft picks is about taking those draft picks and getting a guy that can help you. This team is a team that can win the Super Bowl now. And I understand the idea of sustaining success, but as long as they have a quarterback they have trust in, they have a couple stars on defense they have trust in, blah, 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 blah. The rest of it is just every year, what can we do to win the Super Bowl this year?
So I agree with a lot of that. I do. And I mentioned this yesterday during the Birds Town Hall throughout the day. We are focused on the defense quite a lot, right? And it's understandable. That's where we're losing most of our players at. So everybody wants to know, you had the number 1 ranked defense a year ago. What are we doing to try to retain that so we can play at that level? Listen, I thought last year we needed to be a number 1 defense to win the Super Bowl. Our offense through the air wasn't as explosive. We relied a lot on Saquon in the running game and our play action pass from time to time. But we needed to hold teams to 16, 17 points a game to do that. I'm going to have to – this Super Bowl run, every Super Bowl run isn't the same.
Sure.
So this has to be you're getting it done differently, right? And I heard Hugh talking about this on the midday show, and he's right. This team has to be led by the offense. That's really what it boils down to. The defense has to be, to me, better than serviceable if we're talking about Super Bowl titles. If we're looking at the schedule they play next year, the quarterbacks they go up against, you got to be somewhere. I don't think you can be lower than the 12th ranked defense.
I was going to say top 10-ish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to be somewhere around there. But our offense needs to be more of a top 5, top 3 offense in the league. That's where I'm putting it at. That's where the money is at. That's where the star-proven players are at. So I'm looking at the team, and I'm saying part of what you're saying is correct. I'm giving the defense time to develop, but while that's happening, the offense has to shoulder more of the load. Right?
the
They
team
have to shoulder
changes
more of
next
the
year.
burden for the team's success next year. And that's the sort of the way I'm looking at it. Like, I still believe we can go win the Super Bowl. But it to me, it's going to be predicated on how good are we offensively, not necessarily defensively.
And as you said, it comes down to a lot to passing the football, especially next year with Saquon.
Yes.
All right, 215-592-9494. Do you believe in draft and develop to try to win a Super Bowl next year? Now, Jack, I've heard you, and you're not a Super Bowl thing next year. So
yes.
my gut tells me you do not believe in draft and develop as a strategy to win the Super Bowl next year.
Well, because I don't think next year's a Super Bowl year.
Oh, right.
Like, come on. It's like once you get to that zen moment of next year's not a Super Bowl or bust year, next year is about developing, not winning. It's as simple as that. Like, next year is more about the development of the defense. Who are your real pieces? Who can you put next to Jalen Carter for the next 5 years rather than we got to go all in for next year? I'm a draft and develop guy. That's who I am at my core. And when you make peace with next year obviously not being a Super Bowl year, it becomes way easier.
Well, that's where you lose me at.
Yeah, there's no obviously not Super Bowl year.
Not Super Bowl year.
After you win the Super Bowl. Yeah.
I'm not buying that.
215-592-9494. Draft and develop. Do you think that is a solid strategy to get the team where it needs to be next year?